Good evening and welcome to the Minions of the Zoo. I am your host, the Harry Channel, filling in for Inquisitor this evening. Yes, here we are once again. How's everything going tonight, Serenity Star 13?
Doggy freak
She'll
out.
be right back.
Oh, she's doing doggies. Okay, Jenna, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good.
Good. Good to have you with us. Sora?
Hello.
Hello. DrFunctional?
I'm good. Sorry. Forgot the question.
Hot, but well.
Hot, but well, how hot is it there?
It got up to about 35 C. So what's 34
Oh.
is 95.
But it's a
That's
dry heat.
gross.
275 degrees.
And it's muggy and moist. Even with
It's
the
not
AC
Elderon.
Moist.
Moist. Skeptok, how are you today?
Fine. Just same as usual.
The same as usual.
Alderon was
so,
just mostly peaceful protests. So
Yeah, though they activated the bat signal on Minions and said, "Oh, we need somebody to cover tonight." And actually, Della said he'd grab it, and I totally missed it, and I poached the night from him and bogarted it or shortstopped it or whatever you kids call it these days. So sorry, Della, for doing that. This is my mistake. But we're here now. We're here, and we've got leftover stuff from Saturday that's well worth talking about. And I'm actually glad we have more time to talk about some of those things. But before we get started, would anybody like to unburden themselves with anything before the show gets going?
yes.
Go ahead.
I don't know if anybody saw the new trailer for the new Spider-Man movie coming out in December, but this one's actually got me re-excited for the Marvel movies again, because it looks like it could be really good.
Is
Is
Tom
Ta-Nehisi
Holland worth
Coates-
watching?
Is it still Tom Holland in this one?
Yeah. But they're going to be playing more with the multiverse type thing, so we might get other Spider-Mans as well.
On Spider-Man?
Wait,
really
the whole thing?
weird.
How can you have a
Like
British
it's Spooderman,
Spider-Man?
Spider-Ham. How can you?
Spider-Man. Yes.
How can you have a British Spider-Man?
Yeah, Tom Holland's British.
Well, I mean,
Well-
did you ever see the TV show House? I mean, he's British. Most
Yeah.
of a bunch of
I
people
love
on The
that
Walking
show.
Dead are British.
Benedict Cumberbatch is British, and he does a very sort of deadpan
Oh, he does an
accent.
American accent?
Yeah.
His American
That's
accent is as good as Hugh
appropriation.
Laurie's.
And funny
Hugh
enough,
Laurie is amazing.
Yeah,
I
Hugh
love
Laurie is
He-
amazing.
Cumberbatch is reprising his role as Strange in this one, and they're bringing back Edward Molina as Octopus, which I thought he was
Ooh,
great as
I
the
didn't know
Octopus.
that. I
Yeah,
might watch
That's
it.
pretty awesome. That's
If
pretty
you watch the
awesome.
trailer, it's like right at the end, and I got goosebumps again. It was like, the early days of Marvel movies where I was like, oh, this is neat. This is refreshing.
Okay,
Good
I will.
casting.
I will check out the trailer for that. I love Tom Holland in the Infinity Arc, whatever, the last two
Yeah.
movies. He's adorable. I haven't seen any of his films as his standalones.
The first one I thought was okay. The second one I really hated, Far From Home or whatever, where they went
Yeah.
to Paris. I thought it was one of the worst Marvel movies they've made.
And I'm just
That's-
worried because it could just be the internet every time there's a girl on screen freaking out nowadays, but people kind of saying that Zendaya's character she's just too much shoehorned in or whatever, she's annoying.
It does.
So
feel
that
like
kind of put me off a little bit. I have nothing against her as Zendaya. I really like her, but the idea of her character kind of being like,
not Mary
Yeah.
Jane.
she's not. I thought she was supposed to be Mary.
In
Jane.
name only. In name only.
Oh, in
She
name
is
only,
Mary
okay.
Jane, but she's also
Right.
Mary Sue just a little bit.
Ugh.
No,
Yeah.
she's not redheaded
I don't have
because-
much patience for that anymore, and it's not. But
Well,
if
Jenna, it's more than just the looks. It's Mary Jane was
she had an
a
attitude,
very feminine
yeah.
character in the comic books, but she was also a strong character, strong-willed, strong opinions. Relatively intelligent. I mean, obviously Peter Parker's some kind of like kid genius, but she wasn't just a Barbie
She
doll.
was-
Even
yeah,
though she
she
kind of
was-
had the figure of one. She was a very well thought out, well developed character over the years.
You
And
could
they
have an
kind of
intellectual
just shoehorn in
conversation.
this totally other personality that just doesn't. She seems to, and this happened in the second one a lot. She would berate or make Peter look dumb or inept, and it's like that's not really how that dynamic should play out.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
This-
Complementary.
When I was, and I'm not going to say how old I was because that will make me feel old, but I used to take my little cousin to the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I saw all 300 or 200 of them with him because I take him to the theater, and the only thing I remember from Mary Jane is, first of all, that song Last Dance with Mary Jane. But
Tom Petty.
yeah. Didn't he pass away?
Yes, he did.
That's sad. I saw him in concert at, anyways, was that she was, I don't remember who played her, but she seemed,
Kirsten
Not-
Dunst.
oh, Kirsten.
Yeah, Kirsten Dunst.
Oh, she did good in Interview with the Vampire. Anyways, she was, she held her own, but
She had the look, but again, it was kind of like the opposite of what Zendaya did, in that she played too much of the victim. She was a little
Well,
too weak at points, but she developed.
Was failed.
which is
She
good.
was failed by the writing, don't you think?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, everybody was failed by the writing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all pretty good people for the most part. I mean, fundamentally changing Biff Henderson from the school bully
Oh,
to
yeah.
just sort of this
Yes.
annoying kind of Indian guy with douchey rich parents
Right.
was not really good, because part of the appeal of the Biff Henderson character was that
Flash
he was
Thompson.
all macho, right? He was supposed to be this sort of epitome of masculinity and strength and all this sort of stuff, when of course little old Peter Parker could kick his ass easily, and
Yes.
handily, and
Yeah.
humiliated him in the Tobey Maguire movie. Tobey Maguire was the best Peter Parker. He
Yeah.
wasn't the best
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
He
A
wasn't
lot
the
of
best
times they
Spider-Man.
have
Wasn't the best
trouble.
movie.
They have to really have trouble getting the Peter Parker rolled down and the Spider-Man rolled down. And I think that the current guy, Tom Holland, is actually pretty decent. I don't mind seeing him.
He's a better Spider-Man. I don't think he's as good at Peter Parker.
But he's at least passable at both.
So-
But he's okay as Peter Parker. But let me just give you,
Wait.
and I know you've got a whole bunch of things to get to, Harry. But
Oh, we've got time. Don't worry about it.
back in the day, when I was buying comic books twice a year at the Long France PX, and I was buying. I was a DC Comics guy. I was Superman and Batman,
Love Superman.
and Superman had been converted into a full-on Mary Sue, and they were trying to figure out what to do with him. And up comes this upstart in 1962, this upstart guy named Spider-Man, and he got extremely popular very, very quickly because he was interesting. One thing about, Superman is about as interesting as Clark Kent. I'm sorry, but back in the early 60s, you didn't have the cool things like Mr. Mxyzptlk and the magic characters who had powers over Superman, and kryptonite had not been really explored. And basically, it was the thing: a bunch of guys rob a bank. Superman beats them up and takes them to jail. And that's the end of the comic. I mean, that's what comic books were back then. And Spider-Man comes along, and he's got personal problems,
Character
and
flaws,
relationship stuff. Yeah, exactly. And it was so much more interesting. I immediately, changed my little buying habits. Buy these little 8-cent comics. Comics cost 8 cents, 10 cents back then. They were 8 cents at the PX because we got a 20% discount. And I'm really not kidding. And I loaded up on those things, and my parents despaired because I was supposed to be reading the Encyclopedia Britannica, which I did in 3 years between the 3rd and 6th grade. But I also spent way too much time in those comic books, and Spider-Man was my refuge. So it's a franchise that has a lot of history and a lot of meaning to me.
Well, you can think of him as a person. He's a person
Yes.
with actual person problems.
Yes.
Will he get the girl? He cares about what happens to his aunt. There's
Right.
money issues. I do find that the whole J. Jonah Jameson thing to be fairly hilarious. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like a bad joke they won't let go of, and I
Right.
admire that. I admire
Yeah,
that.
I did
that
the gumption.
that just you got a thing, just stick with it, no matter how
And
dumb
them
it is.
casting.
No matter
them
how
casting-
stupid it is, it's just great.
What's his name? The guy that
J.K.
cast
Simmons.
J.K. Simmons as
Yeah.
J. Jonah Jameson is
Yes.
probably
Yeah.
the greatest casting in comic books history. He is perfect for that role. And
He
it adds
looks
to the
like it was.
hamminess.
It looks like it was
made.
drawn on him. You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't
Well,
They had
Spider-Man
they had
also-
this glimpse of the future, and we're like, that guy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jenna.
Isn't Spider-Man also the only one that has a Weird Al York whatever song?
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can.
No,
See
I know
strong,
he has-
listen, bud.
And
He's got radioactive blood. Watch out.
Oh no, Weird Al.
Was it
It
Weird
was-
Al?
Yeah,
we
he
need
has a
Prospero.
Spider-Man.
We need Prospero here.
I think so.
It's a Weird Al reference.
Yeah.
I love Weird
Oh,
Al.
What are you gonna
no.
do? She's on a beach with like a wine cooler or something with her friends. It's fine.
Oh, can we join? You
Once
can't
a-
just
once a
leave without
superhero.
us.
And
Harry,
here's
my
a
name's
surprise for
not in
you
the
going
title.
now to Prospero on location.
She's like,
Harry,
screw you all.
You're right.
I'm
You're
on
right, Jenna. It
vacation.
was called Ode to a Superhero. Forgot that.
So, does anybody else have anything they'd like to talk about before we get into
yeah, my
serious
name's
stuff?
not on the thingy, but everyone else is.
It's because I'm just doing this at the last minute. And I just cut and paste from before. Geodes isn't here either, and his
Today you
name's
can
listed.
play the role of Prospero.
Yeah.
Prospero's
So,
name's not there.
did you eat anything fantastic today, Sora?
No. Oh no,
Oh.
I lie. Yes, shoot, and I forgot to take a picture of it. So
Damn it!
I was gonna say no, it's nothing. So this little cafe, about a 10 or so minute walk from my work, has what they call a Tom and Jerry cheesecake. So it is a wheat-free cheesecake that is decorated in the shape of like a wedge of Swiss cheese. And it has just a little bit of lemon mixed in, and it is so freaking delicious. It's very light, very like pleasant to eat, and that was very tasty. But I bought it, I kept it all day, and I just had a little bit tonight. I still have half of it.
The
For
last
tomorrow.
cheesecake I made was a Meyer lemon cheesecake with like a sour cream layer on top, just to tone it down even more, with a ginger snap crust. That thing was amazing.
See,
Cheesecake
I don't
is actually
like
really
crust
easy
on
to make.
cheesecake.
Cheesecake
Mhm.
is super easy to make if you just know. There's like about 3 things you have to know. And once you know those things, anybody can make really good cheesecake. It's not like it's not like a superpower or anything, I promise. But you didn't come here to talk about cheesecake. We came here to complain,
Didn't we though?
right? Didn't we?
We
So-
came
We have
here
to
to
talk about
discuss
Warhammer?
serious matters.
So this one was asked about Afghanistan out on the tarmac, the fine macadam here on her way to another country. The most important thing is Afghanistan, but she's going to Singapore. And because clearly you say the most important thing is Afghanistan and then you go to Singapore. And this is the way she responded. Okay.
No audio.
Oh, no audio?
Yeah,
No.
no audio.
Yeah.
Oh, I suck.
Oh, good.
Okay.
She's cackling.
Oh, this is where she says, wait.
So no audio.
I'll get
Well,
you
that
and
kinda
your little
screws up
dog,
that
too.
plan.
Put Biden in a little red hat with wings.
Yeah.
Oh, that's because it's the wrong browser. Okay. Well, carry on amongst yourselves. I'll bring it back in a moment. But I think everybody's sort of acquainted with this thing, right?
Yeah.
That
I didn't see it,
com-
but I can imagine she's kind of predictable.
Well, did you hear what Jen Psaki said? There are no one is trapped in Afghanistan or some crap like
It's
that.
irresponsible to say that they're stranded, Peter Ducey. That's
They're
what
not
Here's
stranded.
the audio.
Everybody else in the world is lying, but Jen Psaki's telling the truth. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, of course I have it muted. This is a technical nightmare stream for me.
Come on, computer boy.
Slow down, everybody.
Oh, there we go. There's audio.
I want to talk about two things. First, Afghanistan.
Shut up. Yeah. So yeah, that's our vice president doing her nervous laughter thing going into talking about Afghanistan. Seems like maybe she doesn't have this whole tone thing down yet.
Yeah, no, Vice President Cackle is obnoxious in the best of times. This is a second-rate failed lawyer, okay, who fucked her way to the job of California Attorney General, and has basically lurked around long enough being an available candidate with the right physical characteristics to be selected for vice president. She's about to become the president of the United States. It's absolutely the absurdist part of me kind of digs this, but the part of me that's patriotic and cares about my country is horrified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our executive branch is far too powerful right now to have a second-rate thinker like Kamala Harris in the Oval Office. And that's about to happen. That'll happen in the next 100 days.
Is there a technical question? Is there any way to prevent that line of succession? Like if somebody is not...
Yes, there is. You can,
Okay.
Yeah, you shoot her in the head.
Oh,
But
I meant
that's
like
just
some sort of,
and we
legal
here
way
at
within
Minions of the zoo do not approve of that sort of thing. We don't recommend it, and that's a very bad thing. That's just about the only way you can. She has
right. So it's a hard line of succession.
It absolutely is. It's written into the Constitution as a constitutional amendment. That's why it's a hard and fast thing.
Right,
It's also bad because what would happen is Biden would get kicked out using the 25th Amendment, probably by Harris, and then getting rid of her becomes very, very troublesome at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
she
people
would have
comment.
She'd have to become president, and then either her VP would have to, 25th Amendment her, which would be a lot harder to do because just being
never happened with that cabinet. It's the cabinet that has to vote on that, and they'll never do that with her.
Yeah.
Just for the Canadians, I want you to know the line of succession. Okay, it goes. What do I call him that I can call him on? Useless fuckface, cackling fuckface, and then Nancy Pelosi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let me just read very quickly what the relevant couple of clauses of 25th Amendment. Whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of executive departments or of others of such other body as Congress by law provide. So basically it's the cabinet officers because Congress has not passed any laws about this.
Couldn't find their own assholes.
Transmit to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. The vice president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting president. That's how you 25. So it has to be, the ringleader has to be the vice president. It must be the vice president. And they take a majority of the cabinet, and then they can go to the president and say, look, you're gone, and I'm the president, so fuck off.
Yeah.
And then the president fucks off and there's a new president.
You know what they could do? They could do what they did with Benedict the 16th or 18th and just have him roam around, the Vatican like, and just have Joe roam around the White House and be like, "Yeah, you're still there," and just
He's
have,
there in bunny slippers.
Or have
Yeah.
a duplicate White House set up someplace and convince him that he's still president.
All you
Did they
need is
duplicate-
just
set
duplicate
of the
his
left wing.
bedroom, the Oval Office, and the refrigerator where the ice cream's kept. And
Yeah.
you don't need the rest. That's the key part of the nucleus of the Biden White House.
Occasionally, George Stephanopoulos comes in, asks him a couple questions, and then leaves just to make sure
The fact that-
upkeep the illusion. It
George
was 4 days ago,
Stephanopoulos
man. 5 days ago.
had to have said, "What the hell are you talking about? It was 4 or 5 days ago. Are you out of your mind?"
Well,
How could he have
clearly,
not
and
said
people
that?
have noticed. People have noticed that. Even
Globally.
yeah, I think there's a lot of buyer's remorse going on right now. Trump is back in the news. He gave he gave a
He
rally
had a
yesterday.
rally the other night.
Yeah, they covered this over on the Lotus
The one in
Eaters.
Alabama.
Yeah, they covered this over on Lotus Eaters and had some clips from that rally. Oh my God, he was doing that stream of consciousness thing, and it was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious, and the contrast between him and the empty suit that we have in the White House right now is pretty stark.
Yeah, even CNN, the Democrat Party's darlings were calling out, Chris Cillizza was calling out Biden's ineptitude and the administration's ineptitude on how they're have been handling stuff. I don't even think that they can run damage control at this point. They're
No.
kind of screwed.
They've killed Americans have been beaten to death over there. No one's died, knock on wood. Oh my Lord, you mother. I don't have an opinion about this, really.
Well, yeah, not one that you want to share right now, of course.
Read side. Serenity needs help.
Oh, okay.
Serenity?
I know, Sora. Sorry, wrong one.
Oh,
But yeah, Green Badger, I mean,
okay.
that was 4 or 5 days ago. That's a good excuse to just start using for anything. You hit my car! Dude, that was 4 or 5 days ago. Relax. As you're standing there with your arm detached and laying in the street.
Yeah.
It's really a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario.
It's disgusting.
You robbed that jewelry store and shot the jeweler. That was 4 or 5 days ago.
All I can say about the situation is I hope that we don't follow suit and re-elect Trudeau in 27 days. Oh boy.
You're
right,
going
Canada.
to. You're going to. By the way, I've looked at the polls. He's like 7 points ahead. It's going to be easy peasy. That's why he called this.
Yeah. It's deflection from the big stories, the corruption, and you know how the news cycle is.
Yeah, the fact he looks like a manic dancing bear.
He shaved. Now he looks like a shaved dancing bear.
Oh God.
Okay, I'm gonna
He's
steal
embarrassed.
I'm gonna snipe just a little bit of Sargon of Akkad's stream here, just so we can get the Trump quote, just a sample of how delicious
Streamception?
Trump is right now. Yeah.
I don't think he'd mind.
You know what woke means? It means you're a loser. Everything woke. Everything woke. It's true. Everything woke turns to shit, okay? It's true.
See, people get away with that. It's actually funny.
This is why I love Trump. Just calling it as it is.
He can say anything he wants now.
He didn't say anything he wanted.
He can.
He can.
No, yeah.
Oh,
my
man.
question
Know,
was,
but
he did?
all kidding aside, what the Democrats are doing right now is they're re-electing Donald Trump.
Oh yeah.
At the rate this is going, it won't matter if they gin up 80 million votes on that side, because he'll have 100 million votes. He'll have a zillion votes. Everyone will turn out to
Everyone left and right of
these
center
assholes.
would be jumping on board. Yeah,
Yeah.
To get rid of these cackling morons that are currently there now.
Yeah, it's the independents that will be like, we're not doing that again.
Yeah.
And people will see the just sheer impact of the failures with the economy, with this Afghanistan thing. And guys, like, we've still got another couple of years to go. There's going to be many, many more flubs. People are going to be so incentivized to get them out.
Yeah, actually,
that they will go to the polls for the first time in.
You mentioned
first
something
time or
in passing,
decade.
functional. You mentioned something in passing. Inflation, when the price of gas goes up from $2 to $3 a gallon.
Yeah.
Okay, that affects a poor person much more than a rich person, and that is not lost on the electorate. And everybody knows that the key to inflation in the economy that we're in, I mean, is controlling the supply of currency, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they have printed too goddamn much money and given too much goddamn money away. And we have an inflation problem now. We're running at about a 7% inflation. If you look at the real inflation rate, you'll see 5.6, 5.7, but it's actually closer to 7% when you take certain aspects, certain other categories into account that really affect people's day-to-day life. That is a ruinous rate of inflation. And I've seen what inflation looks like when it's like 15, 16%, or actually 12 or 13%, and the interest rates go up to borrow money. To borrow money for a house, it's 19%. You guys have never seen that in your life. And it just stops an economy dead in its track. They call it stagflation, and it's harder than hell. It's hard as quicksand. It's economic quicksand to get out of it. Anyway, rant.
Yeah. No, it's terrible. Imagine you work all your life to retire, and you make $1 million. You have $1 million in the bank when you retire. Pick a nice round number. At the end of a year, that is no longer $1 million. It's 7% less.
Right.
And then the
it's
next year it's
$930,000. The next year it's $840,000. The next year it's $770,000. Yes,
it isn't just 7% of, if you're retired, it isn't 7% of what you would have earned in that year. It's 7% of what you've ever saved over your entire life for retirement.
It's the value of your money eroding. That's what inflation translates to in a currency sense.
Well, let me revector us ever so slightly. I want to play this clip, another clip of him talking about the withdrawal and his plan versus what Biden did. Let's do that here.
Oh, dear.
It did not have to happen that way. This is not a withdrawal. This was a total surrender. They surrender for no reason. They weren't asking. We had them. I dealt with Abdul. He was the leader. I said, Abdul, anything happens, we are going to rain terror upon you. It will be a terrible thing.
You do get the impression...
Don't touch our American citizens. Don't ever come to our country. Don't ever come to our country. And you're going to continue fighting your civil war. I can't do that. They've been fighting it for hundreds of years. That's what they do, is they fight. And they're good fighters. But I had a good relationship other than that one statement. I said, after I said that, I said, now let's get down to business. And we had a conditions-based agreement. And the new president came into office and he dropped to his knees and he said, come on in and take everything that we have. This is a disgraceful thing, the most embarrassing thing that we've ever seen in this country. There's never been an embarrassment. And the nations of the world, both friend and foe, are looking at us and saying, what the hell happened so quickly to the United States of America? They can't believe it.
Now, of course, there's a certain amount of Trump hyperbole here.
Yeah.
But the thing that annoys me, I think, more than anything, is that the press did cover this Alabama rally. And the press, the only thing they covered was when he talked about how he was basically the president behind the vaccine stuff, and that he got the vaccine and he recommends other people get it. people booed. And they were more than happy to show just that clip. None of this other stuff made the mainstream news. But the bit with his crowd booing him over the vaccines, well, that's news. That's your takeaway from his little open mic night thing that lasted an hour and a half. Your whole takeaway is that people in the crowd didn't want the vaccines. And he said, fine, nobody's going to, I wouldn't force you to get it. He was totally cool about it. But they weren't booing Trump the man. They were booing something that he said.
Yeah.
But at least it disproves the hypothesis that everybody there is just a mindless sycophant, that somehow he's a cult leader and that they're all in his thrall. Because when they don't agree with something he says, they're pretty vocal about it. That doesn't seem like a cult to me.
No, the woke folk seems like a cult.
Yeah.
To me. Much
With
more
security
than...
Losers.
Yeah.
And all the gropey leaders.
Losers.
And on an optics level, from an outsider looking at the system and the media, to see that's actually kind of refreshing, because he knows that some of his base don't agree with everything he does. You look at similar things that happen with the Democrats in some instances, and it's like they even if they don't like what they're saying, they're like, yeah. It's scary, eerie. Like, it makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, I'm pretty well informed on the broader scope of things, but just taking those sort of clips side by side out of context, it's kind of like, which one's really the cult here?
Yeah.
Like, gas will go up for a little bit. Yay! What? Why are you clapping for that?
Yeah.
Well,
Skep also made another... Hold on, real quick, and then I'll give it to you, Jenna. Skep also said something about inflation. It's important to remember that number represents what they call a market basket. And essentially, they take a bunch of things that they think people would typically need, and they assume you buy a certain quantity of them, and then based on the price of that to buy those things, they calculate the consumer price index.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's more than one consumer price index. They have regional ones and a bunch of stuff. It's on the Department of Labor site. There's all the data you could ever want about this stuff. But the composition of that market basket may or may not represent your personal market basket. So for some given individual, it could be 20% inflation, or it could be 5% inflation, or 0% inflation. It just depends on how much of certain things you buy. So energy is a big component of this sort of thing. You're heating your house, driving your car, doing all that sort of stuff. So if you have a long commute and you've got a car that gets lousy mileage, you're going to really feel it. You're going to feel it a lot more than somebody who has a much shorter commute, possibly, or who doesn't eat as much meat or whatever. So depending on what your personal market basket looks like, that inflation number may be representative of you or not.
That's absolutely correct. I mean,
yeah.
And not only can you change the market basket by changing the elements in it, if you go up the supply chain and start to include some of those things to predict some of the longer term effects over a period of time, you could forecast real inflation, and you usually get a higher number in times like this.
Yeah, but the volatility of fuel prices in particular can be a real big one, because they look at fuel, they look at food, clothing, housing, all these different things, and it's
groceries, gas, consumables, and rent.
We were self-efficient in gas 9 months ago.
Yeah, but we fixed that.
Oh boy, howdy, did you?
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention, so Biden upped people's food stamps because everything's gone up. So, our taxes, not only are there less money in our pockets, less things, everything more expensive. I mean, I have a lot of people to feed. It's a good thing I bought a cow before. Anyways, the fact that people that didn't have to worry about paycheck to paycheck now do, but our taxes went automatically to up in food stamps. And I don't have a problem with people who are on food stamps that need it. are
Mhm.
trying to get themselves out. I have a problem with the people that are on food stamps that just
Lifers.
keep having another baby and all that so they can get WIC and all that.
I think you're talking about the deserving poor versus the not deserving, the opportunistic poor. You know, the deserving poor is a really old concept, and it's basically people who really do need support because they literally can't take care of themselves.
Yes.
Versus people who are trying to game the system somehow. And of course, in between those two extremes, there's a nice spectrum. You know, somebody may take a little bit of advantage, and some person may just be some guy who likes to surf all the time and lives in a van down by the ocean and just collects food stamps and busks every now and then. That's great harmonica playing. Why'd you get a job, hippie? But no, those kind of people drive me nuts.
I'm going to bring my kids into this. The ones that are old enough to remember where they came from it's my boy's birthday. Sorry, it's midnight here. Are so appreciative of, Landon and Gavin. I had to tell them they weren't allowed to share when they first came home. I had to say, no, that's Landon stuff, that's Gavin stuff. You may not share it, because all they ever knew was not having. They lived in a cave.
And Jenna, happy birthday, Tommy and DJ. Right, it was Tommy and DJ. I got that right this time.
Yeah, you got it right.
Dude, I'm so
Yay.
bad with names, and you have too many names. You should have just named them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Or you could have gone. You could have gone the 7
They're
dwarf
8
route.
today. My
Sleepy,
babies
happy.
are 8. And I'm
Dopey.
There aren't enough
Grumpy.
dwarfs for the amount of kids that she has. It's not gonna
This
work.
is sleazy.
Okay, the boys we're talking about are black, so now we're all just horrible people that are racist. We call them
Yeah.
dopey and sleazy.
Grifty.
Never
Grifty,
mind, they're on the
scammy.
eight.
That's Eric.
Grifty,
Eric is actually
scammy.
their biological
Ashy.
brother. All right.
Sit in a corner, functional.
All right.
in the corner.
So I feel like we've sort of run out of gas on Afghanistan. Would you like to talk about something else now, or do we any more thoughts on this before we move on?
Can't wait until it's over.
Okay. Oh, I thought you were talking about the show. I'm like, hey man, it's not-
No,
Yeah.
the whole situation there, because we've already beat
Can
the
I
bush,
just-
but
Can we just mention one more thing about how clueless Biden is to the fact that he thinks the world thinks he's such a great leader and how he handled the pullout? No, you dumbass.
yeah, that's why Skep
Well,
called him
when
an
he
empty
got
suit.
all those votes, he could hardly believe it himself.
He did what? How many?
Say nothing.
Yeah.
You mean I actually have to do this job now? Come on, man.
So I
What do you mean I
actually
won?
I actually find it interesting to talk about really successful and or really bright people and the things that they tend to do. It's interesting to me just sort of how certain types of behavior tend to align with certain kind of outcomes as much as they do. Like, for instance, people talk about Steve Jobs and criticize him for wearing that turtleneck all the time and the jeans. And yeah, he doesn't spend valuable time. Well, he's dead now, but he didn't spend valuable time thinking about what he was going to wear each day. He put on a uniform and got on with it and spent the time that normal people would spend thinking about what they're going to wear, thinking about how to, take over the world of computing or doing, some big thing.
I find that an ironic aspect of Jobs, and here's why. That guy, to me, his guiding light, his guiding star, was searching for beauty, was truly looking for elegance and beauty. Those were the designs that he loved. Yeah, he was a tough taskmaster and he wanted fine engineering performance, but it always had to come out looking beautiful. And he had a passion for typesetting of all things. He was like a font guy, and was fascinated by beautiful fonts. He would have hated my Kristen ITC, for example, that I use all the time on my memes. But he paid attention to the kerning, of font. I mean, the really technical aspects of how fonts were put together, and that was typical. In the products that he produced, he was looking for elegance and beauty, and he believed in beauty. You would find efficiency. That if you produce something that was really efficient, really elegant, you could tell because it would come out looking beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
How do you explain his wife then?
He didn't produce her.
No.
It was a make or buy decision.
Let's take a look at another aspect of this sort of. And by the way, it's not just Jobs who wears a uniform. Zuckerberg does the same thing to a slightly lesser extent, but he pretty much wears the same thing every day. Gates wears basically the same thing. Successful people who run big companies and change the world don't waste time on stuff like fashion for the most part. It's just not even on their radar. And so
things like that are definitely function over.
Yeah. So this is interesting to me. Why intelligent minds like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk embrace the WTP rule to make better decisions. The endowment effect is pervasive. Here's why and how successful people work hard to avoid it.
What's WTP?
In 1977, Steve Jobs famously walked back into Apple and discontinued 70% of its current and future product line. Newton PDA, gone. Pippin, gone. 12 different Mac desktop versions, gone. In short order, a product line of 350 items became 10. Even though Apple had spent years developing these products, even though Apple had spent thousands of hours and millions of dollars on R&D efforts on products still in the pipeline, even though those products and those projects belonged to people at Apple, they were somebody's babies, they were theirs. Hold that thought. In a 1985 experiment published in the Science of the Total Environment, researchers found that participants were only willing to pay $31 for a hunting permit, but were only willing to let go of that same permit for no less than $143. Somehow the fact that the permit was theirs magically made it worth $100 more. Now, this article, which we will link in the chat, talks about this phenomenon and sort of drives this point home. The fact that you think of something as being yours kind of emotionally invests you in it. But a guy like Jobs could kind of look through all the stuff and just say, no, we're going to just cut almost all of this stuff, make it really simple. So you end up with this situation here. If you're a consumer and you want to buy a desktop, you get an iMac. If you're a pro and you want to get a desktop, you get a Power Mac. If you're a consumer and you want to get a portable, you get an iBook. And if you're a pro and want to get a portable, you get a PowerBook. There you go. 4 product lines with, you can get more or less disk or more or less memory, but that was basically the lineup that they were left with. Now,
what's the acronym WTP?
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Well, now you asked me. I'm having trouble remembering.
Is it like the
willing to pay?
Oh,
Social psychologists call it the endowment effect, or if they want to be fancy, divestiture aversion, an application of prospect theory positing that loss aversion associated with ownership explains observed exchange asymmetries. In simpler terms, the amount someone is willing to pay to acquire something is typically much lower than the amount they're willing to pay to give up that thing. And this is also falls into the idea of like sunk costs, right? Because some people will not get rid of a stock and they will irrationally hold on to it, hoping that they'll somehow get their money.
I can't afford to sell right now. I've got too much in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what used to be worth a lot of money is worth not very much money. And if you don't like the direction it's headed, you probably ought to sell. But people always, and I say this as an ex-stockbroker, people will always hold their losers and sell their winners. It's all about, fear versus greed. It's that balance.
I thought we were moving on from the presidency.
Sorry.
Yes. Well,
anyway.
I have a car that that people semi-frequently
that
offer me
crap.
money for at the gas station. Because it's the kind of car that people like to take and fix up, and they find out I've got one with very low miles, even though it's 20 years old. And they really want to take my car away from me and turn it into like a track car. And I'll have none of it, because even though I know what the book value of my car is, I'm not selling it for that. I admit that I have an emotional attachment to it. I don't want to get rid of my car. I like my car. What am I going to do? Get a new car that talks to me and puts on the brakes without me asking it to and does all this other stuff?
And
If I want to
that
run
you
over a
can't,
hobo, I'll run over a hobo.
That you can't start with an actual key. So,
Yeah.
and that and there's no actual handbrake that you can use.
No.
I'm like, fuck that. I hate
Well, I
new
know
cars.
you like your car, Sora,
Yes.
and you don't need to say what it is, but I'm
Love
sure
my
there's
car.
people who would pay you more than book value for your car.
Oh, actually, speaking of that, there was a thing on the radio this morning. Was it this morning or yesterday morning that I heard when I was driving the last couple of days? Basically, because there's a couple of new companies now, because of the shortage in chips and the delay in manufacturing and the delay in this, that, or the other. Resale value or selling to a company who will scrap your car has increased because people still demand cars, but now there is a delay in getting new cars to consumers. Parts are hard to come by. COVID has really kind of made an issue on the market. So it is a thing right now that if you want to sell your car and get rid of it, you might be able to really go over its value because of the guts of the car. So that's something out there. Look into
Well,
it.
yeah, the psychology of people and possessions is really interesting to me. For instance, people will put additional value on something simply because it was at a particular place or a place in time. Like, here's this rock I picked up from the beach, the day I met your mom, that kind of thing. I have a coffee mug that belonged to my late grandfather. And
Oh, wow.
sometimes, like on his birthday or something, I'll pull it out and, have a swig out of grandpa's mug and think fondly of the guy. Just, like every now and then.
Yes.
These things have
Yes.
disproportionate value to us, and me included. I mean, I'm not separating myself out from everybody else. In fact, I might be more sentimental than many people, honestly. I find it really interesting. Do you guys have any examples of things like that you have an almost irrational attachment to because it was from a time or a place, or it reminds you of a person or a thing?
My
Yes.
war hamsters.
But when I was what was I? I was a sophomore in high school, and all I wanted was an AM/FM radio for Christmas. It's all I wanted. And my parents were like priming me. Is it okay if we buy you one big gift instead of a lot of gifts? Yes, that's totally cool. The AM/FM radio, right? Spend $18 for an AM/FM radio. I want that because I only had an AM radio. I couldn't listen to FM radio at night. So, which I really wanted to do because there was a station in Washington I wanted to listen to. I go down Christmas morning, and under the Christmas tree is a goddamn banjo. My parents got me a banjo, and my mother said, "You've got plenty of musical talent. You need to learn to play something. And you've failed at everything else. Learn to play the banjo." And so I said, "Fine, I'll learn to play the banjo." And I got my old Pete Seeger instruction book, and I started to play. And son of a gun, I actually had some ability at it. And I worked like a motherfucker till my fingers bled. And I learned to play to where I could, I got a job in a pit orchestra, and then I started playing in jug bands. And at the time, I took up the guitar, which I initially played just like a banjo. And one thing led to another. And I still have that banjo. And when my dad turned 93, I actually recorded "Happy Birthday to You" playing that banjo for him.
And it's really sweet. I downloaded it.
Is
What?
that one
I
of the
did.
stringed instruments that's in the room with you right now, Skep?
It absolutely is. I'm looking
It
at
absolutely is, and no surprise.
it. Yep. It's always in my field of view, along with the Yamaha guitar that my mom paid $40 for when I was playing my sister's plastic guitar, and I was playing it so well that my mom felt bad for me, and she went out and bought me a decent guitar. And that's still one of the best guitars I've ever played. It really is. It had beautiful action, amazing sound.
Well, people save things like concert tickets, the stubs. Is there anything with less intrinsic value than the stub from a concert that happened? That you can't use the ticket for anything. It's worth literally nothing, but it's worth a lot to somebody because it reminds them of something that was important to them.
Yes.
Well, I saved the tickets for the plane ride home from whatever child we got.
Yeah,
That's a perfect example.
that's a perfect example.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know. Does anybody else have an example they want to talk about? I don't want to try to drag personal stuff out of people.
I actually have another one, but it's a pretty weird one because it has to do with my recovery.
Okay.
So, t-shirts with sayings that, I have a shirt that says, "Don't piss me off, I'm running out of places to bury the bodies." And throughout the years, I was 83 pounds when I left the hospital, and I'm 5'6". You're not supposed to be 83 pounds. So I have t-shirts from my recovery with all these sayings in different sizes that where I'm actually right now working on making into a quilt for my youngest daughter, for Elizabeth,
Mhm.
to have. She's 1, but when she's older, it will just be, I don't know, mommy's recovery. But it's special, and all the sayings on it though. These really nice ladies from church are helping me do it, and one of them said, "This is." I know a lot of people aren't, but one of them said, "Are you sure you have your temple recommend?" Because my shirts are pretty.
So,
run out of places to run.
I got.
Bodies,
Go ahead.
What?
I flippantly mentioned my war hamsters, but that's something Skep said actually inspired me to actually think about it, and I was like, wait a minute, I've got a good one. My sister bought me, I think it was my 18th or 19th birthday, a stereo, like one of the desktop things that's probably the size of a modern day desktop tower. So it's a fairly large thing, 3-disc interchanger, dual cassette tapes, really nice speakers, a really nice system that even back then I may have had, a dozen or 2 dozen CDs, but in short order, LimeWire was a thing and people sharing MP3s. Like, this is the birth of mass sharing even before Napster. And aside from maybe using it as a radio, never really, and I still have it today. It's packed in a box. I haven't unboxed it in a decade and a half. And even when we had it in previous apartments, it would just basically just sit there on some table or something to be more of a memento than an actual functional piece of equipment. And I don't think I could sell it today. I mean, someone would have to be like, yeah, I'll give you $500 for it. I'd be like, maybe, like today's value. What does something like that really have? Like $20?
Well, yeah, the takeaway from this is, I mean, some of it is stuff that doesn't particularly matter, right? I mean, in the big scheme of things, it doesn't matter if I have my grandfather's coffee mug.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if I have things like that. I was actually bemoaning the fact that I don't have a single item that belonged to my dad. And then I realized that half of his DNA is my DNA, and I'm like,
I
okay,
was
we're good.
just going to point that out. Just going to point that
It's
out.
like, I think he's kind of with me here
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
sausage casing of a body
Just
that I have.
take a look at your Y chromosome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I
Dad.
pleaded with my sisters to be like, do you want this stuff? I'm like, yeah. When my dad passed, it was like I got his Israeli passport, his uniform from his service, some other pictures of people I've never met, probably friends of his from the force. Yeah, because like I had that moment, Harry, where it was like, I don't have anything of his.
Yeah,
I want
no kidding.
something. Just and something like that. There's a difference between something that has that intrinsic sort of sentimental value versus just some piece of junk that kind of may, like you said, may remind you of a time that's not really sentimental, but there's still a value that somebody could say, well, I'll give you this amount. You probably part with it. I don't think I could part with, my father's passport, or Jenna would part with, a memento of that level of sentimentality.
Yeah. But if you were
Yeah,
running
I
a
have-
business, would you be able to take that type of thinking, which works great in your personal life, and set it aside? Part of being good at business is being able to kind of separate your ego from certain types of decision-making processes.
Mhm.
You can be
Yes.
friends with people and still have to fire them sometimes.
Yep.
There's a lot of painful shit you have to do when you run a business, and I can tell
Oh
you
my God.
that of the things that I have learned over the years working with business, setting them up, and doing various things which we can't get into right now, I've learned a lot more from the ones that failed than the ones that succeeded, because success is often just happenstance. You have to have a good idea, but being in the right place at the right time matters way more than most people want to give it credit for. I think people would be uncomfortable if they realized how much of life is just random chance in terms of winners versus losers.
Mhm.
But keep this sentimentality in mind as I show you another thing, because I don't know. My take on this is not good. I don't think this is a good thing at all. VR helps Indians and Pakistanis visit their lost homes. India's violent and devastating partition in 1947 displaced some 15 million people and left at least 1 million dead. So many families fled for their lives, never to return to the villages, towns, and cities they had once called home. But now, they can revisit those very places, the houses they left behind, the schools they dropped out of, and even the people they thought they would never see again. Project Don't Care allows them to just do that and take a walk down memory lane, albeit a painful one, with their custom 360-degree VR videos.
Jesus Christ.
No, absolutely not.
This article,
That's
whoever wrote this
torture.
article seems to think this is a good idea.
That's horrible.
What is that in, Harry? What?
This is BBC News.
Oh, of course it is. Idiots.
This is so sad.
What the fuck is
Yes.
wrong with English people?
I mean, okay, so it's not just me. I'm not just being
No, that's
Debbie Downer
I,
about
f-
this.
I feel
No.
uncomfortable about
Well,
this. Very.
If you know anything about
creepy.
the things that led to those people being thrown out, they were thrown out at the point of bayonets.
Mhm.
When Pakistan separated from India, the Muslims killing Hindus and Hindus killing Muslims completely got out of hand, because you basically had a line of Muslims headed west and a line of Hindus headed east. And just a wrong look could start a gunfight. And there were hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who died as a result of that displacement.
Yeah, maybe that's why.
It just makes this sad and seem in very poor taste.
Maybe that's why at most I feel uncomfortable with it, because I've never experienced something even remotely close to that devastating. So I can definitely see that side of the issue.
Well, if they did the Google Earth time machine thing that I mentioned on one of Skep's shows, I think a couple weeks ago,
Yes.
I can see where you, Functional, might want to virtually visit, say, a lost homeland of some ancestor, right? You know, you might want to see, I want to see how my dad lived when he was in this other place. But for you to be the person that has the memories, the firsthand experience, to then basically be not able to go back there, but to have somebody give you just enough of a taste of it to remind you of what you've
Open
lost.
up those old wounds,
And
yeah.
Didn't you say you can see your loved ones?
Well, I mean, if they were there when the Google ox cart drove by, yeah, that took
Well,
the
no,
pictures.
I mean in the VR, it said. I know you said something about see what the loved ones looked like or something like that.
No,
And
it's
even
just
the
to see
people
where
they thought they would never see again, potentially, yeah. There's a potential.
Yeah. If I saw Keisha in virtual reality, it would be, I can't even find the words for it because it would be so
Wrenching.
just rip out your heart.
Yeah, you would get your VR goggles rather moist, to put it, to vastly
Even
understate it.
thinking about it, I have tears in my eyes.
Yeah. So VR maybe not the best idea in all circumstances.
No.
So there was also a few other things that have come up. This is something that Serenity sent me, also from BBC News. This is actually pretty good. So they're taking the COVID vaccine science, the same stuff they did for the AstraZeneca vaccine, and applying it to other things now. So why not cure plague? Because that's a thing they can do. They can essentially take this monkey cold virus thing and gin it up.
Is cancer still a thing?
Well,
not
are you
not
saying
to poo-poo on science, but that just seems a bit funny of all the things. Yeah, let's do the plague that only hits a small amount of people per year.
Yeah. Well, I think
sorry,
this
I'm being
technology
too first world problem.
Well, this technology is a little better suited to that. The cancer stuff is a different problem.
Yeah, I know.
Because what you want to do there is take people's immune cells out of their bodies, give them a little hint, and then put them back in and send them after whatever's trying to invade. That's a different thing. This is just taking weakened viruses and using them to deliver a genetic thing that causes the cells to produce markers for something. So they're actually using the same technology that the AstraZeneca virus vaccine for COVID is made out of to try to deal with something like plague. And the rationale for that versus other things is that people who get plague are usually in remote villages without a lot of access to healthcare. Because people say, oh, you can just take ibuprofen. Well, if you're far away and you don't have access to medicine and stuff, getting one shot that lasts you for a very long time is sometimes preferable to taking a pill that you might not be able to obtain every day for the rest of your life. So, yeah, you can do prophylaxis for the plague, but it's not really practical for some parts of it. So, it's an easy thing they can do to kind of limit some human suffering in parts of the world that kind of you've already been kicked pretty bad by life just to be born there.
Yeah.
So I don't really have an issue with it. That we can cure cancer at the same time, though.
It also has some bearing on malaria. Because if they can figure out how to do it with the plague, they can figure out how to help people with malaria with it too.
Well, malaria sucks. Malaria
Well, it
is
kills
terrible.
more people than anything else, practically, when it comes to
Yeah, and also mosquito abatement. Some of the stuff that they do to cock block mosquitoes is pretty amazing. We're just going to, I can't remember. I think it's that they have a bunch of sterile male mosquitoes that they just release.
Oh yeah.
You know, and they say, okay, female mosquitoes, have fun trying to find a good one.
Well, Well,
And that
it's
cuts
just
down on the populations quite a bit.
Well,
it
what
does.
happened-
That's
But
awesome.
the stuff they're doing for the plague jab, they're also using it to carry over to malaria and a few other bacterial based diseases. And if they can take care of bacterial based ones, that would be like, I agree they need to cure cancer. Don't get me wrong. I agree. But this can help because, like, I mean, California's had the plague break out in how many, like,
There's
homeless
a
camps?
there's a reservoir of bubonic plague in a lot of the animals in the Southwest.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you start sampling rodent like squirrel populations, there's a reservoir of plague there, and it's not going anywhere. Which
Oh,
is
yeah,
why you don't play with the squirrels.
What is it? What is it? The prairie dogs have it. I think it's the prairie dogs. Like, they had to like shoot like,
Yes, prairie dogs do
Yeah.
carry plague.
because I remember
Yeah.
the prairie dogs. I remember that was like, everyone was like, "Are you kidding me? They look adorable. Why are they deadly?" And it's like, well, just look at it this way. It could be worse. They could be
Yeah.
going rabid and biting people.
Okay, so malaria is I couldn't remember. I thought it was a parasite or like a little.
It is.
No, it's
thing.
it's Yersinia, if memory serves.
Yeah. It's
I'm trying to
it's-
remember what
it's
that is,
Yersinia. It's a bacterium.
It is a bacterium,
I think
okay.
I think it's a gram-positive anaerobe.
Yeah. It's
Which
and
the weird thing indeed. You're usually gram-negative anaerobes, but there are some gram-positives, and I think Yersinia is one.
yeah, and it's
That's
one of those
sanguine.
things that, like I said, if they can figure out how to handle bacterial based stuff, like, that means that in Africa they can now give the jab instead of using DEET, or is it DEET? No, what's the stuff that we used to use?
DDT.
Thank you.
DDT.
Yeah, DDT. Instead of spraying houses with DDT or having to use mosquito nets or having to do the sterile mosquitoes, they can just go, okay, we're starting to have an uptake in malaria. Whoever, Samaritan's Purse, whatever, goes out, jab, jab, jab. Everybody's okay. So it's one of
Yeah,
those,
but
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It's gram-negative. It is an anaerobe, but it is gram-negative. It will not take a gram stain, so it's not quite big enough.
But the
Well,
point
I
is,
just-
it is
just wanted to
it is
get
a
the-
bacteria.
Just in case
right.
somebody traced me down and said, "Nah, you said something wrong."
Thank
All
you.
right, I admit I was wrong. I was trying to do it from memory, and I looked it up,
Yeah.
and I was
Skeptok
You're not allowed
fact
to
check.
do it from memory, Skeptok. God damn it.
Skeptok
Okay.
fact check. Yes. Yeah.
I
Well,
just
actually, I
wanna-
use Skeptok to fact check me. Sorry, go ahead, Jen, and then I'm going to bring something else up.
Well, I wanted the malaria jab for Africa. We're thinking first world in a third world first world solutions for a third world country.
Mhm.
They will be like, "What the hell are you talking?" No, not all, but it's not something.
Yes, but in the major cities where it's not that problem,
Yes,
it can help because then it can also cut down on how much money is used, so money then can be allocated to do something else in a perfect world. I understand what you're getting at because we're having
and stuff like that.
yeah,
but-
and I understand what you're getting at, but it's like I'd like something to still be done because at least then it could lead to something else. They could find some great major help for something else in the process because that's usually what happens.
Mhm.
They usually find some other cure or another way to get a cure to someone or something like that. But I mean, this could also work in places like any like place around the equator where they have mosquito problems and malaria problems. Like, even if it's not a third world country, if it's a first world country or a country that has at least a large city population. And even like with the plague, like, this is good to know that we're getting ahead of the plague unless the plague comes back full force. It's like, it's one of those things that makes
I've
the
lived
paranoia
around-
part of my brain.
I've lived around creatures carrying plague, all my life, and I don't know anybody who's ever had the plague.
I know.
In first world, you can avoid it with
Yeah.
proper hygiene
Yeah.
and cleanliness and that sort of thing. It is
Actually-
possible to live near these things without a
Did-
problem.
Do you understand where the bacteria comes from? It does not come from a prairie dog.
Yeah.
Or it comes from a flea.
Yep.
It comes from a flea that lives on the prairie dog. That's how humans get it. And in in our country, we just don't have those we're not close to the fleas that are on and around prairie dogs.
Yeah.
But there are Nigels.
I was just gonna say,
Nigel is a thing.
Why do you think I was so freaked out about this thing? It's like I don't know. Yeah, I looked like I was going into the Bowl Award when I threw that thing in the trash. No,
I have to say it hasn't been quite the same since Nigel left us.
No, that was actually the peak. I really should have just stopped streaming then, because that was the apex of all of my streaming. I think
And
it's
the
never going to
apex
get
of
any
it
better
was-
than that.
Him frying himself and then slamming against the wall.
And then running off, being like, aha, you didn't kill me.
Bastard. All right, so this is really depressing. This is another thing that Serenity sent me.
Woo!
No,
Depression.
this is terrible.
Yay!
Rescue dog shot dead by New South Wales Council due to COVID-19 restrictions.
Yeah,
What the hell is wrong with these people?
Because they
Several-
want them to move from their houses. That was what
Several impounded dogs, due to be rescued by a shelter, have instead been shot dead by a rural council in New South Wales under its interpretation of COVID-19 restrictions, alarming animal activists and prompting a government probe. Berkshire Council in the state's northwest killed the dogs to prevent volunteers at a Cobar-based animal shelter from traveling to pick up the animals last week, according to Council's watchdog. The OLG has been informed that the council decided to take this course of action to protect its employees and community, including vulnerable Aboriginal populations, from the risk of COVID-19 transmission, a spokesman for the government agency said. The spokesman said the agency was examining the circumstances of the incident to find out whether companion animal and cruelty prevention laws had been broken, or just plain common sense. Yeah, this is terrible.
Yeah,
This
and to give
predated
you,
the 4 or 5 days thing.
yeah, but to give you kind of an idea, New South Wales and Australia, as of today, has 805 new cases. But their deaths are 3. Their deaths are 3, and that's been running for this. That's a 2-week average.
Well,
They I can understand if it was Italy at the height of COVID, I could maybe
Yeah, they
understand
were.
that. 3.
I think they need to start shooting some of their Karens.
I mean, if you've seen some of the riot videos that have been going on in Australia,
Oh,
it
I
might
know.
come to that.
Why do you think they built the concentration camps? I mean,
where they broke through the police lines?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
concentrate. You mean the
no, Australia's built
Quarantine
isolation camps.
yeah.
That's gonna go over real.
That's like talk to a German dude. Not a good idea.
I mean, considering how ingrained they are with a certain country, they're following that country's pathway.
China can do it, we can do it, eh?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
That's how they're acting. But yes, no, it's one of those things where it's kind of like it's very it's always, how do I say this? It's always the places that okay, you have a high number of cases. I understand. Your deaths are not that high. Maybe it's taking people, I'm not saying this to be morbid. I'm saying this just to kind of get it out. Maybe it's taken a long time for them to die, but your deaths are still not that high. Why people are acting like this is the Black Plague, and it's not. Because 53% of the population of the planet would be dead by now if it was. I don't understand. And the thing is, I'm not one of these deep state New World Order people. I don't think that. I think there are people who are seeing the ability to seize power and using it, and there's quite a few of them blowing up very much in their face. But at the same time, there's also countries like Scotland where they're like, well, we're going to keep it. And it's like, wow, what happened to freedom? Apparently it doesn't matter.
These new
Scotland's
powers we
gonna
have are
keep
just
it?
they want to keep it. It's entirely too delicious. But I here's my hot take on what's going on with the dogs. Everybody, I think it's another one of those moral panic things. I think the people
Mhm.
in this part of the world have become so obsessed with trying to prove just how much they care. You know, I'm not
Mhm.
going to be the one that's going to kill your grandmother and give her COVID and cause, you know, Oma to die. I won't do that. I care so much that I would even do this unthinkable thing just to show how much I care. Nobody cares more about stopping COVID than I do as I shoot this dog.
I think
Okay,
you're
And-
onto something.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Well, it's
I
he's
think
a,
you're onto something.
yeah,
Oh,
and the
okay,
thing is,
yeah.
it's like looking at New Zealand. Like New Zealand, there's a lot of New Zealanders who are just up their own ass with like, we did so well. Like, look at us. Rest of the countries in the world suck, and they still have cases. They don't have deaths.
Yeah.
They haven't had deaths in like 4 months, but they're still locked down. But they allowed
Yep.
film crews from other countries in.
Yeah, Jacinda's a right con.
Yeah, and it's
My-
like it's one of those things like, but if you like look at any New Zealanders on specifically New Zealanders who have a lot of power on social media, they act like they are gods to this fucking planet because of what they did. Because we locked down. It's like you're like New Zealand is West Virginia of that part of the world. There's not that big of a density of population that you all would be able to spread the disease that much.
I suspect that sentence has never been uttered on Earth before
Yeah.
that moment.
But
Nice.
it's kind of the truth. Like in West Virginia, part of the reason why we don't have the high number of deaths as some of the states around us is because there's only 2 million people in my damn state. Not even that. We all
Yeah.
can spread out.
Ventilation's not a problem for you folks. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm already outside.
Yeah, it's like
It's-
and
it's
plus
fine.
there's always the joke that the West Virginians drink moonshine for fun. Like I think that kills anything anyway. But it's
Yeah.
still it's the whole fact of like when you have that amount of space, you're not going to have a large amount of deaths because you can get away from each other. Like you have to look at stuff at like New York City or Italy or Europe. Like look how the cities in Europe and it wasn't necessarily they handled it bad. It's just when you're that close to each other, just sneezing on a street's going to hit 60 people. Like,
You know,
it's-
sometime if I'm ever on a stream with Sanguine again, because our schedules do not match up, we should probably do a world tour of moonshine, because
yes.
there's the moonshine that you guys have, and then there's the stuff that they have in Austria. That I've
Yeah.
had some Austrian moonshine, and then there's the crazy, insane moonshine from places like the Philippines. Oh my
Mhm.
God.
Oh, the
Crazy
sugar
people of the
cane
world
music.
unite.
Sugar
Well, and
cane
also-
stuff, yeah.
well, not just sugar cane, but they have these vines that grow in the forest. That I can't remember if those. That's not the ones they make lambanog out of. But there's like a traditional moonshine that a lot of the forest dweller people in the Philippines make from the sap from this vine. And I kid you not, it's supposed to be like 185 proof or some craziness. It's just got to be a lot of old blind Philippine
Well,
guys living there.
The closest you can make without using a very specialized chemical process, the most pure ethanol you can make, and I'm dead serious. This is chemistry. This is second year chemistry in college.
Mm-hmm.
You can make 95% or 190 proof ethanol. That's as close as you can get to get above 95%. You have to use a completely different process to synthesize the ethanol. You're basically breaking an ethyl off of another complicated thing and adding a hydroxyl to it. But anyway, make a lot.
Sense.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's but to get that extra 5%, and it's really expensive. I actually had to use some of that in a lab, and they were very careful the way they doled it out. I mean, it was milliliter by milliliter. It's very expensive stuff. Anyway,
Mhm.
that was 1972 chemistry. But
Oh, well, I mean, speaking of home moonshine, I had to clean out a house once and I found a trunk full of, you have to understand Prohibition to understand what I'm about to say. We found a trunk full of wine bricks that were still together.
Wine
yeah,
bricks.
Harry, the stuff you're thinking of is called Nipa palm.
Ah, that's right.
And they used the Nipa palm sap, and it's derived from tuba, a palm toddy that has been aged for at least 48 hours. It comes from Luzon in northern
Mhm.
Philippines, and it's commonly described as coconut vodka because it has a milky white color, and it has very high alcohol content of 80 to 90 proof. Okay, 40 to 45% ABV, and after a single distillation, and they keep distilling it. That's the thing, and it can go as high as 166 proof or 83% alcohol by volume. After the second distillation, its smoothness has been compared to that of Japanese sake and European schnapps. So it's very dangerous. It goes down like a lamb and comes up like a lion.
Yeah. Well, European schnapps, stuff like not Stro 80. There's another Stro that's pretty crazy. Anyway, why are we talking about alcohol?
Because it's fun.
Well, here's something that actually came across my desk, which I thought was good. This is the thing Geo sent me. Just as a bit of a palate cleanser. Call of Duty, U.S. Marines cradled babies in Afghan airlift to rescue 65,000 people. And Kabul, as Biden says, people will die in evacuation.
God,
Yep.
he's
This
such
cleanses the palate.
It cleanses the
Yes.
palate until you hear the Biden statement. It's like, oh my God, you
Ignore senile Joe for a moment.
But yeah,
Isn't that
it's,
just
it's
the
lovely. Some
sweetest?
lovely photos, actually. It's just
Like, you know, baby.
heartbreaking. Why?
He does
Come
look-
on, man! This is what we planned for.
That
We
dude
knew
looks like
this would
Angry
happen.
Cops, though. That dude looks like Angry Cops.
He does
I
actually.
bet you
Mustache and everything.
the parents didn't get to go with the kids.
That's
I
usually
bet
what
you
happens.
Oh.
those Marines, one or two of them are going to adopt some of those kids.
Oh,
Guaranteed.
most likely, yeah. But yeah, no, that's usually sadly how it goes. Is that the kids are separated. Now, I don't know a lot about Vietnam, but isn't that what happened with Vietnam? A lot of kids were taken first, and then the parents never got a chance to go. I hate comparing Vietnam to Afghanistan, but
Yeah.
God, I don't have a choice here.
Vietnam was a little bit different situation.
Okay.
Actually, there was quite a bit of parents leaving, especially men leaving and leaving their families behind.
Ooh.
So yeah,
And then there
Mhm.
was
and the families were massacred by the North Vietnamese, by the way.
Yeah.
yeah, and there were the ones, the kids that were half American, half Britain. They weren't accepted.
Well, yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was. Ugh.
But that happens a lot.
There's
Mhm.
Yeah,
Sadly.
but it's just wrong,
No, it's
and it
no, I
shouldn't.
agree. I agree, but like no, yeah.
I know I have such a right, what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong, but I just I would like the ability to stun gun people that
Yeah.
are stupid.
There are
Oh,
people
honey.
who get families, basically build a family there, and then they come home with them. I was friends with a pair of sisters, absolutely beautiful girls. This pair of sisters, they were half Korean, half Alabaman, and they ended up growing up in Alabama.
Kappa
for the most part.
supremacy.
Yep.
And just beautiful. Both of those sisters were just so wonderful and warm and fantastic. And they had just the most adorable Southern accents. The two of them. Yeah, they were just absolutely lovely people. I refuse to think of them as being a mistake.
Who is the Korean guy who grew up in Tennessee? He's a comedian, and he gets up and he acts like a diminutive little Korean guy at the beginning and said, "Hi, how y'all doing?" You're probably thinking this sounds a little strange.
Henry Cho.
Is that his name?
Yep.
Yeah, Henry Cho. I thought it was Henry something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I saw him on Dry Bar Comedy one time.
Yeah, he was born in Knoxville.
Yes.
So yeah, he's a big old Tennessee boy.
Yeah,
But-
thank you, Harry, for introducing me to Dry Bar Comedy.
Dry
Well,
Bar's
you're welcome.
hilarious.
Yeah, there's pretty good stuff
now-
in there.
Now I'm gonna make people angry, and just keep in mind this is pink news, so it's just largely BS. Okay?
All right, everybody, deep breath and go.
DC Comics will make Superman gay in an unexpected shakeup, and fans are overjoyed.
No, they're not.
DC
He's
Comics is
not
preparing
gay.
to make Superman gay. There we
I
go.
can't see. I'm not looking at the screen.
Okay, you don't want to see.
you
The
don't
claim
wanna
was
look.
made by a former DC comic artist, Ethan Van Scriver, who is often considered controversial. Yeah, whatever. Van Scriver made the claim in a live stream on YouTube on this Thursday, 19th of August, titled "Superman is Gay, Shocking DC Comics Scoop." I just found out. I got a little bit of a scoop about what DC's plans are. Nobody knows this yet, but it hasn't really been announced except by me. The plan is that Superman's book, I guess Clark Kent is going bye-bye. Van Scriver went on to tell DC Comics fans that the company had issues with the trademark for Superman in the past. Their solution, Van Scriver claimed, is that DC Comics is going to kill the original Superman character, Clark Kent, off in an upcoming comic. Superman will then reportedly be replaced by Jonathan Kent, Clark Kent's son, who will later be revealed to be gay, according to Van Scriver. So Superman is effectively gay. Everyone, he is gay.
Well, no,
Okay, wait.
son is gay.
So, okay, go on. Sorry.
No. Van Scriver said Clark Kent's son will come out as gay in Tom Taylor's series Superman, Son of Kal-El, will be launched in July, according to DC Comics' official description of Jonathan Kent, which is shared by Comic Book News. Superman's son has inherited his father's powers and abilities, except his straightness.
Okay.
Go on.
So alien, gay alien, right?
Gaylian.
Gay alien.
Gaylian.
Torchwood did it better, and he was more inclusive because he just loved everyone.
Well, he was banned.
So exactly what now is known as pansexual. I don't know if that was a term that was bandied around.
It may have started back then. I have no idea.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, they did it much better, and they didn't really make it sleazy. This feels sleazy somehow. When Torchwood doesn't feel sleazy, and they got and they had some episodes.
Yeah,
it's wrong.
This is interesting because this does feel sleazy, and I've got to tell you that back in the 1960s and 70s, Robert A. Heinlein wrote a couple of novels. One is called I Will Fear No Evil, and the other one's called Friday, which had gay and bisexual relationships portrayed as being a normal part of society. It can be done in a way that doesn't feel sleazy, forced, and, look at me, award me virtue points.
Yeah, it can be done tastefully.
Tastefully, absolutely. This looks like them just jumping up. Look how virtuous we are. We made an icon gay.
Virtue, everyone over here. Virtue.
Yeah.
What did Trump say? Wokeness.
We're changing
Wokeness
society.
is so gay.
That's what they want to do, is take this big symbol of society. This is like pulling down the Confederate war statues. Look how virtuous we are. We pulled down this icon. and made him into what our diseased little minds thinks is he always should have been. It's just sick and wrong.
Did you hear about the rock? Not the person, but the rock that was removed.
Oh, from
yeah,
the
we talked about that on Saturday.
Yeah.
But it's one of those that it was the joke Sora and I made at one point about there's better fan fiction. This has been done for years. These are fan fiction writers, and it's the same
jobs at DC though.
Well, I mean that's the thing though. That's the problem. That's really kind of interesting about. Like, you see it with the remake of She-Ra, Steven Universe, all this kind of stuff. You see these people who get in, who aren't really that talented, whether it is as story writers or as artists or whatever. They get in and change the stuff, and then they get upset about how much they're paid when they don't realize the reason why they were even hired is because they were cheap. Like, now I don't know about this writer because I've never heard of them, but they did the similar thing to Tom Drake, where they made him bisexual, and then they did this
Robin.
And they did this prior to even that with Iceman, which is a whole thing that just went very, very dark.
The character though.
Well, if you get into it, it's very dark how they did it to him, and it's disgusting. But they're doing this, and then these things don't sell because I forget his name. It's a YouTuber, and I can't remember his name now. God damn it. He talks about, he'll actually go into, it's like they talk about these things being really popular, but he'll actually go down and break down how many comics they sell, and they don't sell. So it's like whatever they say, it's they're overjoyed. It's like the 5 people that follow them on Twitter. are overjoyed who don't buy the comics, and then the comics go by the wayside.
And the thing is like, why then? And I've seen this argument on Twitter under this. Someone linked this, and then some of the comments on Twitter were, write your own character.
Yeah.
Why can't we have? Why does it have to be a known property? Because it's not like where it will be controversial nowadays. You've got who are those in the Young Avengers, like Teddy something or other, and I don't know, those like teenage boys. There's a couple there, right? They're kind of like a main superhero character. They've been a couple for the past like 5 years, and nobody cares anymore. It's not controversial to have someone who's not straight as a main character. But you know what would be really cool is if they develop a new character where their sexuality is just a descriptive. It's not their only attribute, you know?
Yeah. No,
It's just like you're saying, like, yeah, you know, my partner who happens to be male because I'm gay and I have a daughter, and that's it. That's all it's, you know, or you just show it on the, I don't know, however it's written, it can even be blatant, but create something new superheroes, new anything. But I'm like, it's not going to get any more press than this, but at the very least, if you have a new product, you don't have people so angry and then being called like little boys in their mama's basement or whatever. And it'll be more interesting, I think, to have then writers actually bringing out new properties.
Well, I think they want to use the name because they think it's going to get them more recognition, because the 5 people that will buy the comic are the 5 loud people, so they think, oh, everyone thinks like this, and no.
Well, it's also
most people don't.
It's also what I jokingly call the have to strike back at mommy and daddy thing, where, because you see a lot of people who either have gone atheist, and I'm not saying this about all the atheists, I'm talking about the loud douchebaggy ones, and I'm also saying this about the loud douchebaggy pagans.
Like the ones who took atheism and turned it into a religion.
Yeah. And because they were raised by parents who were Christian, and in some of these cases, like, I have people I knew in high school who I knew their parents. Their parents were not militant Christian. They were just very Christian about certain things. And their way of dealing with it was just to go, fuck your religion, I'm going to make my own. And just kind of do that stuff. And they have to bastardize it. So, like, you see it all the time, especially if you're on Facebook, which is part of the reason I'm not on Facebook, is like, especially with pagans, they'll talk about, well, your celebration is based on a pagan holiday. How do you feel about that, Christians? It's like, most Christians know, dumbass.
And to what Sora was saying, what comes to mind is when Han Solo says to Chewie, I don't know, fly casual. It's like, you know, how do cops generally pull over drunk drivers? Well, they're swerving, they're making weird lane
cool,
changes.
Man, act cool.
Yeah. You have to act like something's normal for it to pay off. So, like with fiction like this, it has to have that sort of sense of normalcy. And when you're just shoving it down and taking over something that's traditionally one way, like circling way back to the Mary Jane thing, it doesn't work. And people, even though they might not be cognizant of what's going on, it doesn't sit right with them, and it does not work. It does not pay off.
Yeah. I'm interested to
That's
see
why
how
comics as a whole are dying.
I'm interested to see how they kill Superman. That's what I'm interested in. That's about all I want to know.
Kryptonite.
And why kill him? Why kill him? Why
Autoerotic
can't
asphyxiation. Probably.
Yeah, I know.
why can't his son? Why can't he still be alive and his son come out as gay? Would that be a better story? Then so the son has to talk to him.
No,
right?
but you don't get to kill a heterosexual Superman if you don't kill the heterosexual Superman.
Yeah,
don't you see?
It's for
But
the
that's virtuous too.
It might actually be an interesting story to see us have to see Superman, and don't take this the wrong way, but have to deal with the situation because he is that icon.
Yeah.
And he did, he is a little bit more of a traditional, style of Westerner, American, Americana, grew up in that lifestyle. But to open those doors and say, I'm comfortable with this. Sure, there's some things he's got to rattle around with and sort of come to grips to. But I think that would be so much more of a compelling arc
Agreed.
to have him in the picture,
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
if at all.
But they're not that original.
Of course not.
Functional, they're just not.
No, we
And
see that. We see
Fascinating-
that in everything we do. Like we see that in D&D. We see that in comics and
Oh, yeah.
film, TV.
No,
And it
Ta-Nehisi
never
Coates is going to do
Never
the
works.
the best Superman movie ever. I know you're looking forward to that.
Ray brings up a good point about the San Francisco choir. We're coming for your children.
And then some of them turned out to be pedophiles.
Yeah, that's not good. So I wanted
Ambiguously
to
gay duo.
bring this. Yeah, I put that in the chat. The
was
Saturday
so
Night
great.
Live thing, the ambiguously gay duo. It's pretty funny. Those Smeagol cartoons were great back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Newsweek
Speaking of
reports,
Smeagol.
as well as other things like the Daily Beast, Andrew Cuomo slammed online for reports that he abandoned his dog at the governor's mansion.
Probably
You guys
better
hear
off.
about this?
No, fuck this guy.
Okay, so he is no longer governor
the
as of
issue.
now. He stopped being governor at midnight in New York. So Cuomo is no longer the governor of New York. Hooray.
Celebration.
Ding dong, the dick is gone.
Which old dick? That old
The
dick.
dong is gone.
Yeah, let's see. Where do I have
There you go.
there we go.
Thank you.
Oh, that poor dog's name is Captain. Oh, poor
Yeah.
thing.
Siberian
let's
Husky
see.
Malamute Shepherd Mix. Oh, yoy. It's a big
Yeah.
I'm sure someone
Captain
will love
at
him.
the state-owned residence before he moved. Let's see. Left his dog Captain at the state-owned residence before he moved out last week to stay with one of his sisters in Westchester County. Before he left, 2 state police sources told the news outlet that Cuomo asked mansion staff members if anybody would be interested in caring for the dog.
Oh.
According
Can
to
I
the
say
report-
this? This is better than New South Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least he didn't
Yeah.
shoot it.
Yeah.
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 He probably.
Well, those were
groomed
people's
stuff.
pets. This is a prop.
Yeah, like
And
let's
there he
face facts.
goes on with the rest of the story. Like, it's
Sorry,
pretty
I'm
evident
sorry,
it's a
Harry. I
prop.
didn't mean to. I shouldn't have.
No, you're fine. You're fine. According to the report, the shepherd, Siberian and Malamute mix, is difficult to control and has nipped a few people since the governor first adopted him 3 years ago. The police sources said one staffer reported attempting to take Captain but abandoned the duty when he found himself overwhelmed. Now,
That's a big, powerful
Serenity,
dog.
I'm sure, knows about this. I suspect many of the rest of you do as well. But dogs need structure. With a dog like this, you get a choice. Either you're going to be the head of the pack, or they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about training, both training
Oh.
yourself to handle the dog and about training the dog. Dogs
This
like
is a-
this are dealt with by people all the time, and idiots who are spineless pieces of crap, instead of doing the work, give up their pets all the time. Now, I understand if you've got like an old grandma who's brittle and the dog jumps, and you don't have time to wait for grandma's hip to break 2 or 3 times before the dog gets trained. I get that. Or there may be small children and you can't afford the time, but this is why dogs like this end up in rescue, and why you have to sort of fix them and then find people who can take care of them that aren't going to be betas to a dog. Serenity, I know you want to talk about this.
Well, he's the whole.
He's
This dog
gorgeous.
is he's beautiful, but that's the look of a dog that's gonna fuck with you.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
he
big,
could be
powerful breed.
rehabilitated.
See a picture of the dog.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no, he can
yeah.
be rehabilitated.
With
It's
the right person. Yeah.
because of the nature of the breeds that it is. The Malamute and the Husky are going to override the Shepherd because Shepherds can have a tendency to be sometimes a little bit more independent. But they that was him when he was a
Oh,
puppy.
he is cute.
That was him when he was a
Of course
puppy.
he's
Looks like
cute.
a-
Oh,
Um,
you sweet. Oh,
But
did you
it's
say?
one of those I don't entirely believe there's Malamute in him just from the way his face looks. But it's not that hard to they're the type of dog, and ironically pit bulls are the same way. They need a massive amount of exercise. That's the way you get everything out of their get their brain to focus and kind of get them to work with
Serenity.
you.
He's got the Malamute down. He does have the Malamute down.
It just
that dog
he's
is part
side
Malamute.
wolf. Yeah, it's just
he's got the dome for real.
But yeah, he just looks like he sides Malamute. Not Malamute, sides wolf because of his eyes.
Yeah.
His eyes are very wolf-like, and that's most likely probably from a whole bunch of other host of things. But
I just,
no, he's
if you
I've
get
looked at
that
some other
dog
pictures of
tested,
them.
Oh,
if
yeah,
you get
no.
that dog tested, you're probably going to find there's a few
There's
percent
a few other
wolf in
things.
there.
Mhm.
Yeah, and a few
But no-
other things.
That
but
tweet just makes me
but
the
salivate.
tweets, which tweet? The Trump Jr. one.
Trump Jr. Yeah.
So
So
Cuomo,
Cuomo
got a dog for political
political
optics. No, you do it.
and photo ops, but didn't really want to deal it beyond that. Seems like a solid metaphor for today, the state of today's Democrat Party. Delicious.
And this is the thing.
Delicious.
This is my same problem with the Bidens. If you're going to get a dog for optics, get a Clumber Spaniel, Golden Retriever,
Something easy to handle.
maybe a Great Dane, because Great Danes are, other than their size, are actually pretty easy to handle. Maybe rescue a Greyhound. Like, dogs that, like, can be a little difficult, but not that bad, because Greyhounds are essentially couch potatoes. Same thing with Great Danes.
Mhm.
Clumber Spaniels, they're a British breed, but they're a bigger they're a larger spaniel, and they're sweethearts. We had one for years. They are the biggest love bugs on the planet. And they
You
love
look into their
everybody.
eyes, and all you can see is, I'm a dog, I'm a dog, I'm a dog, I'm a dog.
Basically. And it's like, I don't understand why they get dogs that have German Shepherd, Siberian Husky, Malamute in them, because they are.
How about an
they are-
Akita?
Again, it has to deal with the, I believe it wholly that it deals with the optics. You're getting a powerful dog. Anybody who even remotely knows about these breeds knows that these are powerful dogs, and that person, that political figure, is now asserting that they have this powerful dog. I'm in control of this dog. This is my dog. He or she's a big, powerful personality as well as like physical strength. But
Yeah, but then it blows
He's
up in
mine.
their face, like with this
They
or with the
just
Biden's
showed him up.
dogs.
yeah,
Like with Biden's dogs, where
Yeah.
one thankfully, hopefully lived a good life and then died of old age, and the other one basically had to be removed. And it's like,
yeah, the one that they put it down.
I didn't think they put it down. I think they put it somewhere else. I thought they just
Well,
removed
yeah,
it.
they
but,
sent it to Delaware, but it
Um,
hasn't been seen or heard from.
well, don't jump to conclusions.
Maybe it's in Afghanistan.
Don't jump to conclusions. But it's one of those things where it's kind of like the Bush's dogs were lovely animals. Like, that kind of dog is easy to control, easy to handle. If they get nippy, I've been bitten by a terriers enough times. It's a pain, but it's nothing like an Alaskan Malamute or a bite.
Mhm.
It's nothing. So
Well,
it's
there's
one
a
of those
difference
things.
between a nip and a bite that can crush your forearm.
Yeah, and that's
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of the issue, is that it's like, don't, and this goes for every person on the planet, don't get an animal you can't fucking handle. Do
do
your
your
research.
research. Know your breeds before you get them.
Hold
Yeah.
on. Yeah, no, it's not about the breeds. Everybody is focusing on the wrong thing here. Yes, there may be some breeds that are
dog
better for
itself.
your lifestyle. The reason when you go for dog training, the owner is being trained as well as the dog if they've never
Oh, yeah.
gone through it before. It's not about the dog, it's about the owner. You know, as much of a
Yeah.
joke as guys like Caesar Milan kind of are, you know, he's not wrong about
Yeah, he's not.
He's
about,
actually
you know,
right
dogs
about a
need
lot of things.
He is. You have to
Yeah.
be consistent with dogs, and you have to make sure that they understand that they eat second, they walk through the door second. You cannot let the dog start to think that they are in charge. That's not
yeah.
saying beat the dog. It's just little stuff that matters in the language of the dog. And a good trainer will train you and train the dog at the same time. Well, basically, they
And-
train you to train the dog.
And your
That's what a
dog
good
will
dog trainer
be
does.
your dog will be happier knowing where it stands.
Yeah, more secure.
Absolutely.
Well,
It needs stability.
well, especially with dogs that are used to running in pseudo packs like Malamutes and Huskies, because they're used to running in groups because of being sled dogs. They do even better with it because it gives them idea where they stand. They know where in the line they stand. There's some dogs you can, I don't want to say looser with it, but you can be a little bit not as hardcore, but anything that's especially working dogs that are like sled dogs, protection dogs, you have to be very specifically, you have to know they have to know the line of succession, basically. They have
Well,
to
you
know where they
also-
stand.
You also need to be, when you talk about the breed of the dog, then you're getting into, do I have the environment that this dog needs to thrive? It's not about training anymore. You do not want to get a, I don't know, 50% Catahoula, 50% Border Collie mix and be in a one-bedroom apartment. That is
Yeah,
not a good idea.
He will eat
that
through
will
your
go
walls.
Unless you jog
go
8 hours a day.
poorly.
Even
That
even
will go
then,
very
they'll
good
eat
catty
through your
dog.
wall.
No,
Even
yeah,
then, they'll
of
eat
course,
through your
Serenity.
wall.
Of
Even
course,
then,
yeah.
I've owned
Yeah.
several Catahulas and several mountain curs. They will eat through your walls.
Yeah.
That is what they love to do.
Yeah.
The dog
when
rejected
when
Andrew
caddies
Cuomo's
go
advances.
psycho, it's not pretty.
It's
I
not
would take that dog in a second.
Well,
That's a beautiful
Catahulas, ironically, are worse than pit bulls when it comes to biting people. It's just they're such a rare
And-
breed that you don't hear about it, but they do more damage than pit bulls sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's still
Yeah.
it's that thing of like the governor's mansion at least had the land that the dog could be run,
Sure.
and it wasn't that
and the
hot.
people that handle it.
Yeah, and he had the people to handle it. It's one of those things where it's kind of like I don't, and celebrities do this too. Like they get dogs for the optics, and then when the dog is no longer useful, the dog disappears. But in this case, because so much stuff is still watching Cuomo, and of course he's incompetent because he's a Cuomo, it's like, let's just like leave the dog there. Not like anybody's gonna know. It's like you.
Yeah,
moron.
well, we know even Newsweek is coming down on you. It's great to watch the news remember what its job is, even a little bit. They're
Yeah.
still covering for Biden. They're still
Oh,
covering
yeah.
for all of these idiots. But you can only do so much when you can only distort reality so much before people start to notice.
Well, I mean, when it involves animals or children, with Biden, the children thing, we're not going to go into that, but that one they kind of missed the bar on. But like usually with animals or children, they usually step up. But yeah, no, he's just proven even more how much of a dummy he is. And what
That's
was
an
it?
insult to dumb people.
Wasn't it Prospero said that like he got like he's nothing like his dad? I have no memory of his father because that was well before time. But
Prospero,
I met his
think-
father.
yeah, you were the one who said you met his father, and then Prospero also talked about his dad. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And it's like,
He is nothing like Mario
Yeah.
Cuomo. Mario Cuomo was a standard Hubert Humphrey type liberal who,
yeah,
was kind of, he did some fairly dumb things, I think, financially for New York State. He borrowed long-term money to pay short-term debt back in the 70s. But, he had integrity, and he also had great personal warmth, real charm, and it was sincere. He really did. You really got the feeling he cared about, when he shook my hand and talked to me, I felt like I was the only person on earth. Like he really focused his attention on you. He had a lot of charm. Andrew Cuomo has none of that. He is a charmless, he's about as charming as a water moccasin.
he looks like a frog.
And Scott Dworkin can choke on a bag of dicks.
Yeah, you read the same thing I did.
Mhm.
I saw that off to the side. I was like, "Fuck you."
So there was another thing that crossed my desk a few days ago, and maybe one of you Canadians can explain this to me.
I'll do my best, E.
Yeah. So
Oh, yeah, this.
you sent this, and
Yeah.
I is this basically you saying that independents are doing great and liberals are getting their ass handed to them? Can you
AK, is this a good
explain
thing?
this?
It is a good thing because it's also showing that people don't have to be a part of the.
Well, hold on. Some people do listen and don't actually look at the screen. So can you actually describe what we're looking at, please, Functional?
So Miss Elizabeth Smith Crossland, who ran as an independent in Cumberland North, territory, which was projected to only win about 8.4% of the vote. Instead, on election day, is winning over 50% of the vote, despite being canceled by the PC, the Progressive Conservatives, and standing against lockdowns. So she, right now, as of that screenshot, was at 53.2% of the vote, and because it's first past the post, she won. And it's showing that people can get away from what are basically being referred to as the uniparty by voting for independence or the new party, the People's Party of Canada, who take that more traditionally liberal, fiscally conservative type of party that a lot of people are chomping at the bit for, because we look at the liberals and people have heard the stories, they've seen the stuff about Trudeau, and it's all true. And then what they don't hear is O'Toole on the other side, on the progressive conservative side, the leader of that party, is basically the same thing. He's talking about climate change and carbon taxes and this and that, and it's literally the same coin talking on from both sides. So this is refreshing. This is a good sign that people aren't just throwing their votes away or taking away votes from their traditional parties that they might vote for, in this case the PCs, and saying we can stand up against these big parties and still get elected and still have a voice in government. To me, it's almost making me emotional, because it's like something I believed in but never thought I would see in my lifetime. And this is just an isolated case, but with provincial and federal elections coming up here in Canada almost on top of each other, it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. And if we can get more cases like this, it will be a game changer of the political landscape.
Functional, I have a question.
Sure.
Now, I know that you guys don't vote for the prime minister. You don't vote for the person. You do what England does. You vote for the party.
Representative, yeah.
And then the person is decided by whatever. So is there a way that even if Justin Trudeau's party wins, that they won't choose him to be prime minister?
Yes, but that to sort of Cole's notes, that would just be political suicide for the party.
All right.
Because
Why?
because generally what they do is they say, okay, well, this is our boy, this is our leader of the party. We are going to vote for them, blah, blah, blah. To then, after the election, say, no, we don't want you. That would kind of erode all trust of that party from the electorate.
You know somewhat who you are voting for Justin Trudeau. Well, you're not. But
In a
people are
sense, yes,
Trudeau.
people are voting for their independence based on party because of the head honcho, the leader of the party. So when people vote for the Green Party, they know they're getting the Green Party's leader. When they vote for their local NDP representative, they know they're going to be getting Jagmeet Singh in the head office. Yeah. Oh, there he is. What a good boy.
What a good boy.
Yeah, probably.
Now did I actually cover this earlier? I don't remember if I covered this.
Oh, and tune in on Wednesday, because Wednesday is going to be a bit Blind Press's channel. Yeah. It's going to be a big affairs of Canada if you're interested in what's been going on in just the last week. You wouldn't know it because everybody's talking about Biden in Afghanistan, but there's big news coming out of Canada right now. Sorry.
Why Geode sent me the link from the Netherlands version of the Business Insider, I don't know. So just ignore the lorem ipsum looking crap to your right.
Zitten we gingen.
Kenosha prosecutors are demanding the names of everyone who has donated to Kyle Rittenhouse to bar them from serving on a jury. I mean,
his jury or any jury?
No, his jury. Prosecutors say anyone who donated to Kyle Rittenhouse is objectively biased and shouldn't serve on a jury.
Then BLM needs to be done the same way.
That can't be every jury.
How does that prove their prejudice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Explain to me the direct causal link between making that contribution and that they are currently prejudiced the way the guy is asserting. That's absolutely absurd.
Agreed.
Well, here's the statement from the Kenosha County Assistant District Attorney. Anyone who has donated money to the defendant's legal defense funds or purchased products from his family's website, freekyleusa.com, why can't he just get sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends? Anyway, is objectively biased and should be stricken for cause from serving on the jury in this case, the Kenosha County Assistant District Attorney Thomas Binger wrote in a motion. Okay, this seems not... I mean, I can understand why he would make this argument. I mean, it doesn't have to prove anything, but you can exclude people from a jury for all sorts of reasons, right?
Well, you,
I mean,
you get
until-
you get preempted. You get preemptory challenges. You get a certain number of preemptory challenges where you don't have to justify them. You can just say, "I don't want that guy on the jury," and you don't have to give a reason. There's a certain number of those.
That's specific.
Then you
This
can
seems
al-
very blanket.
Oh, hang on.
Oh.
Then you can also beyond that, there's challenge for cause. When if somebody says something outrageous, usually that's the judge will question them further and then say, okay, you're going to be excused, and they're off the panel. The idea that you can challenge and exclude a class of people, which is what's going on here, is absolutely outside the law. Period.
Yeah,
It
that's what it
doesn't
seems
exist. This would be precedent setting, and any judge who adopted this would be looking at being reversed so fast, no matter what happened in that trial, that the first appellate court would demand a retrial. There's no way
So
that passes muster.
If you were to go on social media for a prospective juror and find a picture of them involved in a BLM protest,
What were they doing
or
there?
saying or doing something that they just wearing they're wearing a Black Lives Matters T-shirt while they watch stuff get lit on fire.
Okay.
Would that be okay to exclude them from the
No.
jury for prejudice?
No,
Well-
what were they doing? You're drawing conclusions from something that those conclusions are not permissible because there are too many other possibilities.
Mhm.
It doesn't pass the reasonable man test, basically.
Yeah,
The-
and I'm just playing devil's advocate, by the way.
I know, I know.
I'm not advocating anything.
One sec, Jenna. But because what I was trying to say when Skep was talking, it's the difference between an individual exclusion versus a blanket. Oh, we don't want these. Like, what's next? They go back 200 years. We don't want any people with this skin color on the jury. Like that.
That's where this
seems
that's
to me
exactly
this,
where this leads.
exactly. It
Yeah.
seems to me like this is too broad of a scope, and you would hope that the judge would be like, "No, get out of here." with this.
They have challenges on the jury already. Those
Sure, yeah.
those tools are available to
Yeah.
both plaintiff and
defendant.
respondent in the
Respondent.
civil case, and the state and the defendant in a criminal case.
There was the guy in the Derek Chauvin trial who went to George Floyd protest and all that stuff, and after the trial, it came out that he was pretty much got on the jury to make sure he got convicted.
But that was at the fault of the defense
Yes, and
to not exclude that individual, not just
yeah, that
blanket. No, we
individual-
can't have anybody who's ever been seen wearing a BLM T-shirt ever.
Yeah, well, that's he
Very different
was
things.
seen with a George Floyd T-shirt, and
Mhm.
so he is very much different than a person that just has a BML shirt. But
Or a BLT shirt.
the BL, okay, but the fact that that's okay in people's mind, but a whole group of people have to be ostracized because it's not their think.
Mhm.
It's the wrong think. It's not woke enough.
Well, to
That's
take
pretty much what the difference between Kyle and George.
And you know, Jenna, a BLT, a bacon, lettuce, and mutton, where the mutton is cut nice and lean.
well, to take this on an even more conspiratorial, like dark thought of how long do you think it would take before that entire list of people who gave to Kyle Rittenhouse mysteriously
It's
leaked.
leaked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my thing. That's what this smells like to me.
And then you have your Antifa types going, and these people suddenly get beaten up everywhere across the
Or lose their jobs.
or lose their
You'll find-
jobs,
you'll
or have
find
their bank
other-
accounts closed.
You'll find other lists, that make it convenient. Well, we want this group of people excluded. Oh, we want this,
and we all know how lists turn out.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
I
we can't
personally
find
think-
out who bought the paintings for Hunter Biden, but we can find out who bought a T-shirt off of GiveKyleMoney.com or whatever it's called.
Did Joe show up for his showing up there at that New York gallery?
I don't know. He has such faith in Hunter that he probably knew it'd be
The
okay.
smartest
without him.
man he's ever.
Yeah,
Oh,
you've got this.
Well, we have hit the 2-hour mark, and
And we did
for a
it
last
hard.
minute thing where we all just said, "Hey, let's go put on a show, kids, and save the orphanage." I think we did okay.
My mom's
I
got some
appreciate-
old drapes.
Yeah, and I can play the banjo. I appreciate you all coming out on such short notice. Does anybody have any final thoughts before we say good night?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Because it is that time of the season and the thing I just had to do the fucking fight with for last hour and I had to shoot it. For the love of God, please make sure your animals, if you have them and you let them outside, have rabies medication. Have the rabies, because I had to shoot a skunk and he almost bit one of my dogs and it had rabies because I can tell. And I had to do that and that was not fun in the dark.
Sorry.
And remember to get your pets spayed or neutered.
Spayed or neuter too, please.
I'm Bob Barker.
Yeah.
And
What do
good
you?
friend.
What kind of varmint gun did you use?
Oh, God, I don't even know what it is. It's my granddaddy's that I just inherited.
22
So
LR.
it's a shotgun.
Okay, I have. The,
Not quite. There was still skunk left.
Was it a shotgun?
No, it was a varmint rifle. It was the one my grandfather had when he was young that he
okay.
kept up,
Sweet.
and that's the reason why I don't know what it is because
And it's also a
anything,
reason.
So
any
it's just
branding
like, hey,
is
this
gone.
works.
Well, its
Randy,
branding's
when
gone.
you shot it, did it smell?
The skunk?
Like, when you
No.
kill a
Yeah,
skunk,
they-
does
they-
it spray or anything?
They don't stop smelling. They don't stop stinking when you shoot them.
No, but
That
I
would be
think
a nice feature. But
it would
they
be
don't.
nice. But he
Well, I
didn't
know,
smell
like, if you
that
run
bad, so I think he was. So skunks will get very aggressive, like most animals will with rabies. But they get very aggressive, they release their glands a lot easier, and they can't just refill it very easily. So he didn't
takes some
smell
time.
that bad.
He's
So I'm
probably low,
assuming
yeah.
he sprayed something before he set the dogs and the cows and the cats off. So
It was like Hunter Biden at the end of a 3-day weekend.
Yeah, Serenity's gonna wake up tomorrow and Hunter Biden is gonna be lying dead on her lawn. I thought it was a skunk officer.
I mean, it smelled and it growled. That's all I know, and I shot it. That's all we're going
it's
with.
disgusting in its underwear.
Ugh.
All right, I don't know if we can go out on a higher note than that. Anything else?
We're all going to get arrested.
All right.
Not out my neck.
Good night,
Wee-oo,
folks.
wee-oo.
Bye-bye.
Good night.